Chapter 12 of The Ghost of Kingdom Come by Rev. Gerald Brennan. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Maria Therese. The Little Girl Who Fell Asleep. During my stay at Storm Castle, Sus, the colored boy, was very kind. He seemed to cook the things that I like. He cared for my room. He brushed my clothes. I invited Sus to spend an evening with me. I said nothing to him about ghosts, but I did want Sus to meet the great Baron of Baghdad. The clock struck 12. The lights went out. The ghost baron entered the room. Sus screamed. He yelled. He hollered. "Please, Father Gerald! Please, Father Gerald! Please, please! Save me! Spare me!" I heard the door slam. Sus was gone. The Baron and I both laughed. "Father Gerald," the ghost said to me, "I suppose after that you are going to tell me a ghost story." "Yes, Baron," I answered, "I am going to tell you a ghost story, but not the kind you think. I am going to tell you the most beautiful ghost story ever told, and it's a true story, too. The story of the little girl who fell asleep. This all happened long ago, when our Lord walked on this earth. But first, I must tell you about a little girl. The girl's name was Miriam. Miriam was a lovely little girl, blue eyes and golden hair, hardly 12 years old. She was still in her playdays. People used to say that Miriam was the prettiest girl in town. I think they were right. It was sad news for our playmates when the word was passed around that Miriam was sick. She was very sick. Sick with fever. The doctor was called. 2 doctors were called. The doctors shook their heads. People spoke in whispers. People prayed fervently that the lovely little Miriam would not die. Miriam's father and mother were heartbroken. Miriam was their darling. They did not want to lose her. They prayed. They cried. They prayed some more. In the midst of all this sorrow, a little boy came into the house. He told a strange tale. That morning he and his mother had been to town. They had seen a man called Jesus. They had seen Jesus cure the sick. Jesus had done things that no man could do. Why, Jesus had even made a blind man see. Poor Miriam's father listened to the boy's story. Then he rushed from the house. He ran all the way to town. He was looking for Jesus. Perhaps Jesus could help him. Perhaps Jesus could save his little girl. At the feet of Jesus the poor man told his story. He begged Jesus to come to his house. He begged Jesus to help his little girl. Jesus started back with the little girl's father. Peter, James, and John, all friends of Jesus, followed them. Before they reached the house, a messenger told them that the little girl was dead. "Let's go back," said Peter to Jesus. "The girl is dead. It's too late." Jesus did not answer. He paid no attention to Peter, but hurried along to the little girl's home. They reached the home. The mother, with tears in her eyes, met them at the door. The little room was crowded with neighbors and friends. Most of them were crying. "You are too late. You are too late." A woman in black was speaking. "The girl is dead. The girl is dead." "No," Jesus smiled slowly. "The girl is not dead. She is asleep." A man laughed. He laughed out loud. Then some of the others laughed. "Why, certainly she is dead. She doesn't breathe. She cannot move. She cannot talk." Everybody was speaking at the same time. Jesus did not argue. Jesus asked no questions. "She is not dead," Jesus spoke softly. "She is asleep." Jesus walked over to the little girl's couch. Someone called her by name. She did not answer. She did not move. There was silence. What would Jesus do? What could Jesus do? Everybody wondered. Jesus looked at the little girl. He touched her. She did not move. Jesus held her hand. Her hand was cold. Yes, the girl was dead. There wasn't a sound in the room. It seemed as though everybody had stopped breathing. The little fingers of the dead girl lay in the hand of Jesus. Jesus felt them grow warm. Color came back to her cheeks. Her eyes opened. The dead girl was alive. Yes, the lovely Miriam came back to life. Jesus gave Miriam back to her father and mother. Tears of sorrow became tears of joy. "She's alive! She's alive! Hurrah! Hurrah!" everybody shouted at the top of their voices. The father, the mother, the neighbors fell at the feet of Jesus. They thanked Jesus again and again. Little Miriam thanked Jesus. Then Peter went off with Peter, James, and John. In no time the whole town had heard about Jesus. Everybody was talking about the little girl who fell asleep. Pretty soon the whole world heard that story, and for hundreds and hundreds of years that story has been told over and over again. It is a true story, a very true story. I call it the story of the little girl who fell asleep, the most beautiful ghost story that has ever been told. The little girl who fell asleep. The ghost whispered the words to himself. "Baron," I said to him, "anybody who remembers this story should never be afraid to die." The Baron wanted me to explain. "Some people are afraid to die," I said. "If they would only remember the story of the little girl, Miriam, they would never be afraid to die. If they would only remember Jesus' words, 'She is not dead, she is asleep.' Christ's friends never really die. They only go to sleep. They sleep until Jesus comes, until Jesus wakes them up and takes them to heaven forever." The ghost Baron nodded his head. "Yes, Father Gerald," he agreed. "It is easy to die. It is easy to go to sleep when we know that our Lord is coming, when we know that Jesus is on his way to wake us up again. Yes, it is easy to die. It is easy to go to sleep, especially when we know that we shall wake up and look into the face of Jesus." End of Chapter 12. Chapter 13 of The Ghost of Kingdom Come by Reverend Gerald Brennan. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Maria Therese. A letter to God. My friend, the ghost, the first great Baron of Baghdad, rushed into my room. He was all excitement. "Oh, Father Gerald," he cried, "I have a story for you." "You have?" I was all curiosity. "Yes, St. Peter told me the story today. It is a true story, too, and only happened yesterday." "Come, Baron, sit down. Hurry up and tell me what it is all about." I could hardly wait for my friend to begin. "This story is about a letter that was written to God," said the Baron very slowly. "I think the ghost was trying to tease me. He knew that I was anxious to hear his story. Very slowly he unfastened his soldier's cape. I tried to be patient. The ghost Baron began his story. Bobby and Floyd were friends. Bobby was 7. Floyd was a little older. They were very good friends. They were next-door neighbors. They played together. They ate together. They did everything together. Now it seemed, as St. Peter tells the story, a few weeks ago Floyd was taken sick. He was rushed to the hospital. Then, sadly enough, 3 days later, Floyd died. Little Bobby waited and waited for Floyd to come home from the hospital. He wondered why Floyd was staying away so long. Little Bobby was lonesome, very lonesome, for his little friend Floyd. At last Bobby went to his mother. "Mother," asked Bobby, "where is Floyd? Why doesn't Floyd come home? I want Floyd to come home." There was a tear in the mother's eye. "Bobby," she said, "Floyd is not coming home. Floyd has gone on a long, long trip. He will never come home again. Floydie is climbing a long pair of golden stairs. When he gets to the top of the stairs, Floydie will be with God." Those words made Bobby cry. He thought and he thought and he wondered. "I know what I'll do," said Bobby to himself. "I'll write God a letter." And that's just what he did. That afternoon Bobby took his pencil and a large piece of paper. He began to write. It took him a long, long time to write his letter. When the letter was finished, Bobby placed the letter in an envelope. Up in the right-hand corner of the envelope, Bobby placed a stamp. On the envelope he wrote in big letters, "To God, up in heaven, in the sky." Bobby put his letter in the mailbox. He said nothing to anyone. The next morning the men at the post office were busy with their letters, and were they surprised! All of a sudden they came across a letter written, "To God, up in heaven, in the sky." Of course the mailman had no way of taking the letter to God. They decided to open the letter. Inside the envelope they found Bobby's letter. Here is what they read. "Please God, did Floydie get to the top of the stairs all right? Please see that he gets there soon. Bobby." "Well, Baron," I asked, "did Floydie get to the top of the stairs all right?" "Oh, sure, Father Gerald," replied the ghost. "God couldn't refuse a prayer like Bobby's letter for his friend. You know, Bobby's letter to God was really a prayer for his poor dead friend. I'll bet the poor souls in purgatory, souls who have to climb to the top of the stairs before they can see God, wish they had a friend like Bobby to pray for them." The ghost listened to my every word. "Yes, Father Gerald," the ghost spoke sadly, "if I had had a friend like Bobby to pray for me, I would not have had to remain in purgatory so long. When your friends die, don't forget them. Pray for them. Help them to climb the golden stairs." Before I went to bed, I remembered all my friends who had died. Were they in purgatory? Were they still climbing the golden stairs? "Please, God," I prayed, "help my friends get to the top of the stairs. Please see that they get to heaven soon." End of chapter 13. Chapter 14 of The Ghost of Kingdom Come by Reverend Gerald Brennan. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Maria Therese. 3 men in a boat. It was my third last night in Storm Castle. I felt a bit sad. I think the Ghost Baron felt that way too, because our meetings would soon be over. A wild storm was howling through the night. For a while the ghost was silent. He seemed to be listening to the roar of the storm. "Such a wild night," the ghost was speaking. "What a terrible night to be at sea. I'll bet the sailors are saying their prayers tonight." "Yes, Baron," I replied, "but a good sailor prays every day and every night. Good sailors are always praying." "What do you mean, Father Gerald?" the Baron wanted me to explain. "Let me tell you a story about 3 men in a boat. It was a terrible night, a night like this, the night of May the 4th, the night the steamship Tyrone went to her grave. Little did anyone think, as she sailed from New York, that the Tyrone would never return. In the middle of the ocean the great boat sprung a leak. Water poured into her sides. It was cold, dark, it was raining. Fierce rain, thunder, lightning. Those last few hours on the Tyrone were hours of horror. Men, women, children, crying, screaming, praying. All of the passengers had been taken from the Tyrone. They had been put into lifeboats, 16 to a boat. What a terrible night to be tossed around in little boats. It was a night of terror. It was a night of tears. The last persons to leave the ship, the sinking Tyrone, were 3 sailors, Sam, Bill, and Joe. They left none too soon. 5 minutes after they entered their lifeboat, the Tyrone dove deep into the ocean. The Tyrone disappeared from sight. She was gone, gone to her grave. All through that terrible night the 3 sailors rowed in their little boat. All through that night the rain fell hard. The thunder roared. The lightning crashed. If morning would only come! Perhaps someone would see them. Perhaps some ship would save them. The old ocean was certainly angry, the way she tossed and rolled. Morning did come, but morning brought no help to Sam and Bill and Joe. The rain was still coming down in torrents. They were drenched to the skin. The 3 sailors were cold and tired. What had happened to the other lifeboats they could not tell. There was not a boat in sight. At noon they saw a ship. Oh, it seemed to be miles away. If they could only signal that ship, if someone would only see them, they would be saved from a watery grave. Sam pulled off his shirt. He tied the shirt to an oar. They held the oar high in the air. It was a poor flag, but it was all that they had. They waved their flag. They screamed. They yelled. Sad to say, no one from the other ship saw the 3 men in the boat. Little by little the big boat faded in the distance. The boat disappeared from sight. It stopped raining, but the waves still dashed high. The poor sailors were tired. They were weak. The 3 sailors were afraid and very desperate. "What shall we do? What can we do?" Sam cried at the top of his voice. "Why doesn't somebody pray?" asked Bill. "God alone can save us." "I can't pray," said Sam. "I don't know how." "I can't pray either," called out Bill. "Joe, you do it. Please, please, please. Get us out of this. Ask God to help us." Joe said that he didn't know how to pray, but he would try his best. He fell on his knees. He held out his arms. He looked up at the sky. "Oh, God," Joe prayed, "I haven't done this for over 30 years. For 30 years I haven't asked you for anything. Please, please, get us out of this fix. If you save us this time, I promise that I won't bother you again for another 30 years." "That was a funny prayer," interrupted the ghost. "Did God hear the prayer of the sailor, Father Gerald?" "No, Baron," I answered. "He did not. The 3 sailors, Sam, Bill, and Joe, never came home. Their bodies have never been found. The 3 sailors sleep somewhere out in the middle of the ocean. It is bad business to pray to God only when you need Him. If the 3 sailors had prayed every day, I think God would have saved them. A good sailor prays every day. A good sailor prays all the time." The Baron stood up. He seemed puzzled. "Wait a minute, Father Gerald. Let me ask you a question." "What is it?" I asked. "If the 3 sailors who couldn't pray were lost at sea and never found again," the Baron argued, "then how, Father Gerald, how do you know that they tried to pray?" The ghost was grinning as if he had caught me. "Oh, that is easy, Baron," I laughed. "Those 3 sailors," I explained, "who were lost because they could not pray, each had a guardian angel. One night during a terrible storm I heard the 3 guardian angels tell this story. And they were very, very sad."
End of chapter 14.
Chapter 15 of The Ghost of Kingdom Come by Reverend Gerald Brennan. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Maria Therese. Flippy the Flea. My friend the ghost, the first great Baron of Baghdad, poked his way into my room and sat on the edge of my bed. My room was a little upset. I was busy packing my big suitcases, for soon I would be leaving Storm Castle. The ghost watched me for a while, and then he asked a question. "Do you travel much, Father Gerald? Do you like to travel?" "Yes, Baron," I told him. "I like to travel, to go places and see things. But like Flippy the Flea, I always like to get home again." "Flippy the Flea? Who is he?" laughed the ghost. "Well," I smiled, "Flippy is a tiny little fellow about whom I like to tell a story." "A story? You know, Father Gerald, it would be terrible for you to leave without ever telling me the story of Flippy." The ghost was teasing me. "All right, Baron." I pushed some books off a chair and sat down. "I'll tell you the story. I'll tell you about Flippy the Flea. Flippy was a flea, not a common flea. Flippy was a smart flea. Flippy had brains, and lots of them. He didn't spend his time crawling here and there. He was a very clever flea. He worked hard, and for a while was very happy. Flippy lived with his father, mother, 4 brothers, and 2 sisters. The whole family worked in a circus. Flippy was a trained flea. Flippy could hang by his toes and swing high into the air. He could turn somersaults. He could dance. He could walk on his front feet. In fact, Flippy could do so many tricks that people went to the flea circus just to see Flippy. Children loved Flippy. Boys and girls clapped long and loud for him. Imagine a flea working in a circus. As Flippy grew older, he tired of the circus. He did not like to be locked up in a glass case. He was tired of eating sugar and honey every day, tired of having people look at him all the time, even when he slept. "Why should I work so hard?" he said to himself. "Other fleas can travel. They go where they please. They meet new friends. They find nice things to eat. They don't take chances with their life as I do. Why, every day I risk my life. And for what? Sugar and honey." So thought Flippy for several days. At night he could not sleep. Someone seemed to be always whispering into his ear, "Come on, Flippy! Come on, Flippy! Come on, Flippy!" He could stand it no longer. For 1 whole week he did not sleep. He turned and tossed in his little bed. But sleep would not come. Night after night he planned his escape. He thought that Monday would be the best day. All the fleas slept late on that day. Yes, next Monday would be Flippy's day to escape. He told his plans to no one. Never a wink did Flippy sleep on Sunday night. He was up with the sun. He tiptoed across the glass case. Quietly he packed some sugar in a handkerchief. He tied the handkerchief on the end of a stick. Throwing the stick over his shoulder, he jumped high into the air. Up, up he flew. He was soon free from the glass case. He was off to see what makes the world go round. It seemed so good to be free. He walked for a while. He ran. He walked some more. At noon he sat under a tree and ate his lunch. He even took a nap. Then he was on his way again. In the middle of the afternoon, Flippy became tired. He flew into the collar of a lady's coat. It was warm in the collar. He fell asleep. When Flippy awoke, the lady was riding in an automobile, and Flippy was riding too. Oh, it was lots of fun stealing a ride in the collar of a lady's coat. And where do you think the lady took Flippy? Before he knew it, Flippy was on a big boat. Oh, boy! At last he was going to see the world. The dream of his lifetime. A ride on a boat. Flippy jumped from his hiding place and decided to see the ship. He walked and he walked and he walked. What a ship! What a big ship! So clean, so lovely. Flippy heard someone say that the boat was sailing for France. He could hardly believe it. Imagine his surprise when he heard the name of the boat. It was the Normandy. The Normandy, the Normandy, Flippy kept saying to himself, the fastest boat in the world. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy! It was a great trip for the first 2 days. Then a storm came up, and was poor Flippy sick? So sick that he wanted to die. He could not sleep. He could not eat. He tried to pray, but he was too sick to pray. He thought of all the terrible things of his life. He felt that God was punishing him. Poor, poor Flippy. The storm stopped. Flippy was hungry. He ate some sugar. He felt better. He felt much better on the 5th day when they reached France. Many people took the train to Paris, but not Flippy. Flippy flew to Paris. He flew every inch of the way. He loved Paris. There were so many things to see. Yes, Flippy was having the time of his life. It was lots of fun. Flippy made his way to Holland, but he didn't like Holland. Holland was too clean. The people were too clean. Why, the people even chased him with brooms. They tried to step on him. They tried to kill him. Holland was no place for Flippy, and Flippy knew it. Then something terrible happened. Flippy's food was gone. He was hungry. Try as he did, he found it hard to get food. Nobody seemed to be sorry for him. Nobody seemed to care. Oh, it was pretty hard to see the world on an empty stomach. Many a night poor Flippy had to sleep in the cold. Many a night poor Flippy cried himself to sleep. Flippy went from country to country. He climbed mountains. He rode on trains. He even rode horseback. But the horse shook him off, and he fell to the ground. It was a bad fall, a hard fall, a fall that hurt Flippy. For a few days it hurt him to walk. He was miles from home. He was sick, hungry, sad, disappointed. Then it was that Flippy felt that he had made a mistake. "I have done wrong," he cried to himself. "I have been a fool. I must go home. I will go home." Flippy made his way into Italy. Italy may be a pretty place, but Flippy didn't see much of Italy. He didn't stop to look. No, he was going home. He was going home. The steamship Rex was about to sail for America. With a leap and a jump, Flippy was on the Rex. Flippy was happy. He was going home. It was a grand ride on the Rex. The sea was calm. There was lovely music. Flippy took no chances. He crawled under a door into a vacant room. There he found a lovely bed, a soft bed. He was soon asleep. For 7 days Flippy never left his room. For 7 days Flippy had nothing to eat, but Flippy was happy. He was going home. He was going home. When the Rex reached New York, Flippy was the first one to leave the boat. In no time he was back at the circus. He was afraid to enter. He wondered if his parents would forgive him. He wondered if they would take him back. Oh, but they did take him back. They did forgive him. As Flippy flew into the circus, his father and mother shouted with joy. His brothers and sisters kissed him. They hugged him. They squeezed him. They danced with joy. Why, Flippy was so happy that he cried. Yes, Flippy cried tears of sorrow, tears of joy. But that isn't all. That night Flippy and his family sat down to a grand meal of sugar and honey. Yes, for Flippy it was the grandest meal that he ever ate. "Father Gerald," interrupted the ghost, "it seems to me that I have heard that story." "Yes, Baron," I smiled. "Jesus told that story. In Jesus' story it was not a flea that ran away, it was a young man. You know, Jesus told that story because he wanted people to know that God is our Father. Whenever we try to get away from God, we always fall into trouble. Some people, when they sin and fall into trouble, are afraid to go back home. They are afraid to go back and face God. That is where they make a mistake. God loves us so much that He always leaves the door open. No matter what we have done, if we are sorry, God will always take us back." "Good gracious!" exclaimed the ghost as he prepared to leave. "I must hurry back to heaven. St. Peter will be calling me Flippy the Flea."
End of chapter 15.
Chapter 16
of The Ghost of Kingdom Come by Reverend Gerald Brennan. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Maria Therese.
I make a wish. My last day at Storm Castle. I wrote a letter of thanks to the fourth Baron of Baghdad, the present owner of Storm Castle, who was still traveling in Europe. I tidied my room and finished my packing. I arranged for a taxi to take me to the station at 9:30 that evening. After supper I listened to the radio. I was delighted when the ghost Baron entered my room. He carried a package which he placed on the table. Unbuttoning his big cloak, he drew up a chair. For an hour and a half the Baron and I visited together. The ghost wanted to know all about my book. "What will you call the book?" was one of the Baron's questions. "Well, Baron," I answered, "I have decided to name the book in your honor. My book shall be called The Ghost of Kingdom Come." A broad smile swept over the face of my visitor. He seemed to be greatly pleased. "You see, Baron," I explained, "you are a ghost, and you live in heaven, or, as it is sometimes called, Kingdom Come." "And now, Father Gerald," the ghost Baron replied, "I have a surprise." The great Baron of Baghdad arose from his chair. He removed his package from the table and handed it to me. "Here," said the ghost, "are some pictures for your book. I drew them myself." "Pictures for my book! Pictures for my book! The children will love them. Imagine a book with pictures drawn by a ghost." There was a knock on the door. It was Sus, to tell me that my taxi was waiting. I found it hard to say goodbye to the Baron. I think that he did too. "Goodbye, Father Gerald," he said, "and good luck. This is the last time that we shall meet in Storm Castle. We shall meet again, and our next meeting will be in heaven, in Kingdom Come." The taxi carried me slowly down the castle driveway. I turned for one last look. Storm Castle was a glorious picture in the moonlight. There was a flash of light from the balcony of a third-story window. Someone was waving good-bye. My ghost friend was waving his sword of silver. I made a wish. I long for the days of Kingdom Come. "Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come."
End of chapter 16.
End of The Ghost of Kingdom Come by Reverend Gerald Brennan.